What's up, story lovers? Welcome to Black Magic. In today's video, we have a fantastic tale for you. What if Merlin's bloodline awakened in Harry at age 6 and he could rewrite the laws of magic itself? If this is your first time here, consider subscribing and hitting the bell icon so you never miss a story. And if you're a returning viewer, thank you for your continued support. Alright, let's jump right into it. Chapter 1, The Awakening. Harry Potter woke up screaming for the third night in a row. Sweat plastered his unruly black hair to his forehead as he shot upright in the darkness of his cupboard under the stairs. The strange dreams kept coming back, dreams filled with swirling colors he couldn't name and a deep voice calling to him from somewhere impossibly distant yet right inside his head. "Boy! Shut up!" Uncle Vernon's voice thundered from upstairs, followed by the ominous creaking of bedsprings that suggested he might actually get up this time. Harry pressed his small hands against his mouth, trying to stifle the sobs that still racked his tiny 6-year-old frame. Something was happening to him. Something that scared him more than Uncle Vernon ever could. In the dream, an old man with a beard that shimmered like starlight had reached for him across what seemed like centuries. "The blood awakens," the man had said. "You must be ready, young heir. The magic bends to your will now." Magic. The forbidden word in the Dursley household. The word that earned him no meals and extra chores whenever he accidentally mentioned anything unnatural. But these dreams felt more real than anything Harry had ever experienced. As his breathing steadied, Harry noticed something odd in the darkness. Faint lines of blue light traced the edges of his cupboard door, lines that definitely hadn't been there before. He blinked hard, but they remained, pulsing slightly as if alive. "What the?" Harry whispered, reaching out a tentative finger to touch the nearest glowing line. The moment his skin made contact, the line brightened and seemed to change slightly, as if responding to his touch. A rush of information flooded Harry's mind. He suddenly understood that this line represented a boundary, a threshold between spaces, and with the slightest effort of will, he could change what that meant. Harry pulled his hand back as if burned. This was definitely not normal, even for him. The next morning, Aunt Petunia rapped sharply on his cupboard door. "Up! Get up now! You need to watch the bacon." Harry groaned and sat up, immediately checking for the blue lines. They were still there, but fainter in the morning light seeping through the slats of his cupboard door. He could see other lines too, gold ones tracing the path of electricity in the walls, green ones following the water pipes, and some purple ones he didn't understand at all. "Did you hear me, boy?" Aunt Petunia snapped, unlocking his door. "Yes, Aunt Petunia," Harry mumbled, climbing out of his cupboard and trying not to stare at the network of colored lines he could now see covering everything in the house. In the kitchen, Harry stood on his stool at the stove, carefully turning bacon while his cousin Dudley counted his birthday presents at the table. The colored lines were everywhere now, and Harry found it hard to focus on cooking when he could literally see the heat rising from the pan in shifting waves of orange light. 36, Dudley said, looking up at his parents with a frown. "That's 2 less than last year." While Uncle Vernon and Aunt Petunia scrambled to placate their son, Harry's attention was drawn to something else entirely. Around his cousin, he could see a faint red haze, anger and entitlement manifested as actual visible energy. Around his aunt and uncle were similar auras, but with different colors mixed in. And around himself, Harry caught a glimpse of his reflection in the kitchen window. A brilliant white gold light surrounded him, growing brighter by the second. "What are you staring at?" Aunt Petunia snapped, noticing his distraction. "Nothing," Harry said quickly, turning back to the bacon. But as he did, his elbow knocked against the hot pan. Instead of burning him, though, the pan moved, no, it floated, away from his skin before he made contact. The 3 Dursleys froze, staring at the momentarily levitating cookware. "What did you do?" Uncle Vernon bellowed, his face turning an alarming shade of purple. "I didn't, Harry stammered, but he knew. Somehow, he'd changed something about the way the pan was supposed to work. He'd seen the lines of force around it and instinctively pushed them away. Cupboard. Now. Uncle Vernon grabbed Harry's arm and dragged him away from the stove, flecks of spit flying from his mustache. No meals for the rest of the day. Back in his cupboard, Harry sat in stunned silence, watching the lines of blue light pulsing around him. The old man from his dream had said something about magic bending to his will. Could that be what was happening? Experimentally, Harry reached out and touched one of the blue lines on his cupboard door. This time, instead of just sensing what it was, he tried to change it, imagining the lock on the other side simply not working. The blue line rippled under his finger and seemed to rearrange itself slightly. Harry heard a faint click from the other side of the door. He pushed gently, and to his amazement, the door swung open despite Uncle Vernon having locked it seconds before. Harry quickly pulled the door closed again, his heart pounding. He'd done it. He'd changed something just by wanting it to change. That night, the dreams intensified. The old man with the starlight beard seemed closer, more urgent. "I am Merlin," he said, his voice echoing across time. "And you, Harry Potter, carry my blood in your veins. The gift has awakened early in you, too early. You must learn control." "But how?" Harry asked in the dream. "I don't understand what's happening to me." "Look for the patterns in all things," Merlin replied. "Magic is not chaos, it is structure. It has rules, laws, foundations. And you, my heir, can see them as they truly are." When Harry woke, the colored lines were even more distinct. He could see not just single lines now but complex webs of interconnected patterns throughout the house. What's more, he could sense beyond the walls, out into the neighborhood and beyond. Something far away caught his attention, a tangled knot of magic unlike anything else he could perceive. It felt like suffering, like darkness, like an unnatural prison. And within it, a familiar presence reached out to him across the miles. A name came to Harry's mind unbidden, Sirius Black. He didn't know who this person was, but the connection felt important, vital even. Without fully understanding what he was doing, Harry focused on that distant magical knot and began to gently unravel its structure. Miles away, on a forbidding island in the North Sea, the wards of Azkaban prison flickered momentarily as a portion of their underlying magical architecture rewrote itself. In a high-security cell, Sirius Black looked up as the constant presence of the Dementors suddenly withdrew from his vicinity. For the first time in 5 years, his mind cleared completely. And in that clarity, he felt something impossible, a connection to his godson. "Harry," he whispered into the darkness. Back at Privet Drive, Harry gasped as the connection strengthened. Suddenly he could see the face of a gaunt man with long, matted black hair and haunted eyes. The man was in a stone cell, but the magical barriers around him were unraveling rapidly. "I can help you," Harry whispered, though he wasn't sure how the man could hear him. "The walls aren't right. They're keeping you when they shouldn't." In his mind, Harry could see the magical structure of the prison, a lattice of containment and punishment magic that felt cruel and wrong. Working instinctively, he began to create exceptions in the pattern, little doorways and weaknesses. Sirius Black stood up in his cell as he felt the wards around Azkaban shift. Something impossible was happening, the anti-apparition charms were developing a flaw, a loophole specifically attuned to his magical signature. It was as if the prison itself was creating an escape route just for him. And pulling him toward Privet Drive. The location appeared in his mind with perfect clarity. Without questioning this miracle, Sirius transformed into his animagus form. As Padfoot, he slipped through the bars of his cell during the guard's shift change and made his way to the outer wall where the magical barrier was now weakest. With a desperate leap and a crack of apparition that shouldn't have been possible, Sirius Black disappeared from Azkaban. Harry fell back onto his cot, exhausted. Whatever he'd just done had taken tremendous energy. The lines around him wavered and dimmed as his eyelids grew heavy. Just before sleep claimed him again, he heard a dog barking in the distance. The next morning brought chaos to the wizarding world. Alarms blared throughout the Ministry of Magic as officials discovered the first successful escape from Azkaban in recorded history. Minister Fudge was beside himself, Dumbledore was summoned from Hogwarts, and the Daily Prophet prepared a special edition. Meanwhile, in Little Whinging, a large black dog limped through the early morning streets, following an inexplicable magical tether drawing him toward number 4, Privet Drive. Harry woke to his aunt's shrill voice ordering him to weed the garden. His head pounded from the strange exertion of the night before, but the colored lines remained, showing him the magical structure of the world. As he knelt in the front garden, pulling stubborn dandelions from Aunt Petunia's flower beds, Harry noticed a new pattern approaching, a complex swirl of magic in the shape of a dog. The large black dog limped into view at the end of Privet Drive, its gray eyes fixed intently on Harry. When their eyes met, the magical connection between them flared brilliantly in Harry's vision. "You came," Harry whispered in amazement. The dog quickened its pace, trotting directly to Harry despite its evident exhaustion. Once it reached him, it sniffed his hand, then pressed its muzzle against Harry's chest in an almost human gesture of gratitude. "You're serious," Harry said with certainty, though he still didn't understand how he knew this name. The dog's eyes widened in surprise, then darted around to check if anyone was watching. Seeing no observers, the air around the dog shimmered, and suddenly a gaunt, ragged man crouched where the animal had been. "Harry," the man rasped, his voice hoarse from disuse. "How do you know who I am? What did you do to Azkaban?" Harry shook his head, just as confused. "I don't know exactly. I can see things now, patterns, magic. I saw you trapped, and I changed the pattern." Sirius looked at him with a mixture of awe and concern. "You look so much like James, but those eyes." His voice broke. "Harry, I'm your godfather. I shouldn't have left you that night. I'm so sorry." Before Harry could respond, Aunt Petunia's voice rang out from the doorway. "Boy! Who are you talking to? If you're slacking off," she stopped abruptly as she spotted Sirius, her face draining of color. "You!" Sirius turned, his haunted face hardening as he recognized Lily's sister. "Petunia. I see you've been taking good care of my godson," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm as he glanced at Harry's oversized clothes and too-thin frame. "Vernon!" Petunia shrieked, backing toward the house. "Vernon! We need to leave," Sirius said urgently to Harry. "Right now. The ministry will be looking for me, and if they find me here, what's all this racket?" Uncle Vernon appeared in the doorway, his face reddening at the sight of the disheveled stranger in his front garden. "Who the devil are you?" Sirius straightened up to his full height, and despite his prison-gaunt appearance, there was something dangerous in his bearing that made Vernon pause. "I'm taking Harry with me. He doesn't belong here, and you've never wanted him anyway." Vernon's face purpled. "Now see here," but whatever he planned to say was cut short as all the windows in the house suddenly shattered outward. Harry stood with his hands clenched at his sides, the golden aura around him now visible even to non-magical eyes. "I want to go with him," Harry said quietly, but with an authority that seemed to physically push his uncle back a step. "He's my family. My real family." The magical lines connecting Harry to the Dursley household wavered and began to rearrange themselves. Harry could see the complex pattern of protective magic that surrounded the property, his mother's blood protection, he somehow knew, and with careful precision, he began to modify it. "What are you doing, boy?" Vernon sputtered, but there was fear in his voice now. "Changing things," Harry said simply. "The protection stays, but I'm going with Sirius." Sirius watched in astonishment as visible ripples of magic flowed around the property. "Harry, how are you doing this?" Before Harry could answer, multiple popping sounds filled the air as wizards in aura robes appeared at the end of the street. At the same time, a silver instrument in Dumbledore's office at Hogwarts began emitting high-pitched whistles, alerting the headmaster to the disturbance in the blood wards at Privet Drive. "They found us," Sirius said grimly, transforming back into Padfoot. Harry placed a hand on the dog's head. No, they haven't, he said with a certainty beyond his years. He could see the tracking magic the Aurors were using, and with a simple twist of thought, he redirected it, sending the magical signature they were following racing off towards Scotland. The Aurors paused, looked confused, then disappeared with more popping sounds, apparently following the false trail. "We still need to go," Harry said, turning to the Dursleys. "You won't see me again, probably. That's what you've always wanted." Petunia's pinched face showed a flicker of something. Not quite regret, but perhaps recognition. "Lily could never do things like this," she said quietly. "Whatever's happening to you, it's something else." Harry nodded. "I know. Tell Dumbledore, when he comes, that the heir of Merlin has awakened. He'll understand." With that cryptic message, Harry climbed onto the back of the large black dog. To the Dursleys' astonishment, both boy and dog shimmered with golden light and vanished from Privet Drive. Miles away, in a rundown cottage that had once belonged to Leo Lupin, Harry and Sirius materialized in a shower of golden sparks. Harry tumbled off the dog's back, utterly exhausted from the magical exertion. Sirius transformed back to human form and caught Harry before he hit the floor. "That was impossible," he said, cradling his godson. "No wizard can apparate through anti-apparition wards, let alone take someone's side along. And you're 6. Harry gave a tired smile. "The rules work differently for me now. I can see how to change them." "The heir of Merlin," Sirius repeated Harry's parting words to Petunia. "Is that what this is? Are you really?" "He talks to me in my dreams," Harry explained, his eyelids growing heavy. "He says I have his blood. That the gift woke up early in me." Sirius laid Harry gently on an old sofa, his mind racing. The implications were staggering. If Harry truly carried Merlin's bloodline and had inherited his legendary ability to shape magic itself. "Rest," Sirius said softly. "We'll figure this out together. I promise I'll never leave you again." As Harry drifted into exhausted sleep, the old man with the starlight beard was waiting for him in his dreams. "You've taken your first steps," Merlin said approvingly. "But there is much to learn, young heir. Magic has laws for a reason. Change them too drastically, too quickly, and the consequences can be severe." "I freed my godfather," Harry told him proudly. "I changed the wards at Azkaban and the tracking magic the Aurors used." Merlin's expression grew serious. "And in doing so, you've sent ripples across the magical world. Others will have felt your power. Some will fear it. Others will covet it." "Like who?" "There is one whose soul is fractured, who clings to a half-life far from here. You felt his touch before, when you were but an infant. He will sense your awakening, and he will come for you." "Voldemort," Harry whispered, the name surfacing from some deep memory. "Yes. And he is not the only one. The Ministry will fear any who can rewrite their laws. And there are older forces that maintain the balance of magic itself. They too may move against one who can change the foundations of their power." Harry frowned in his dream. "I'm just a kid. I don't want to fight anyone. I just want to be with my godfather and learn about magic." Merlin's eyes softened. "And so you shall, for a time. But prepare yourself, young heir. Great power draws great challenge, always." When Harry woke, sunlight was streaming through dirty windows, and the smell of cooking filled the small cottage. He sat up, feeling stronger, and immediately noticed that the magical lines around him were even clearer now. Sirius entered the room carrying a plate of toast and eggs. "You're awake. I wasn't sure how long you'd sleep after, whatever it was you did yesterday." Harry accepted the plate gratefully. "I can see even more now," he said between bites. "The magic has patterns everywhere. Like a giant web connecting everything." Sirius sat beside him, his own plate balanced on his knees. Despite having showered and found clean clothes, he still looked gaunt and haunted. Harry, we need to talk about what happens next. The entire wizarding world will be looking for me. And if they discover what you can do, they'll either want to control me or destroy me, Harry finished matter-of-factly. Merlin warned me in my dreams. Sirius nearly choked on his toast. You really are talking to Merlin in your sleep? The actual Merlin? Harry nodded. He says I'm his heir through my dad's family. That his blood woke up in me early because... He frowned, trying to remember. Because of what happened when Voldemort tried to kill me. At the mention of Voldemort, Sirius's face darkened. If that monster is still out there somewhere, and if he learns what you can do, he'll stop at nothing to use your power. I know. But first, we need to clear your name, Harry said decisively. I can see that you're innocent. There's no darkness in you like there should be if you'd betrayed my parents. Sirius stared at him in wonder. You can see that? Just by looking at me? Harry nodded. The magic doesn't lie. Someone else betrayed them. Someone who's still alive. Peter Pettigrew, Sirius growled, his hands clenching into fists. The rat is still out there somewhere. Harry closed his eyes, focusing on the magical connections he could sense radiating outward from Sirius. Family magic, blood magic, oath magic, he murmured, following the tangled threads. There. His eyes snapped open. I can find him. He's connected to you through an old oath, and the connection is still active. Sirius looked stunned. The Marauder's Oath. We swore it in our 5th year at Hogwarts. But Harry, even if you can locate Peter, we need evidence the Ministry will accept. They won't take the word of an escaped prisoner and a 6-year-old, even if that 6-year-old is, whatever you are now. Harry considered this, absent-mindedly tracing patterns in the air with his finger. Where his finger passed, faint golden lines remained briefly visible. What if we could make a magic that forces the truth? Not like Veritaserum that can be fooled, but something that reveals the truth of what happened that night for everyone to see. Sirius looked both impressed and concerned. Creating new magic is incredibly complex, Harry. Even the most brilliant wizards spend decades developing new spells. Harry smiled. But I'm not creating. I'm rewriting. I can see how truth magic already works, and I can just adjust it a little. Before Sirius could respond, Harry extended his hand and focused intensely on the golden threads he could see in the air. With careful precision, he began weaving them into a new pattern, drawing on the principles of existing truth spells but modifying them to create something new. A small golden orb formed above his palm, pulsing with internal light. What is that? Sirius asked, his voice hushed with awe. Memory truth, Harry said simply. If we use it on Pettigrew when we find him, it will show everyone his memories of that night, the real memories, not what he might say happened. Sirius reached out tentatively to touch the orb, then pulled back. That's... Harry, that's incredible. But also terrifying. Do you understand what it means to be able to create magic like this? Harry closed his hand, and the orb disappeared. I think so. Merlin says I have to be careful. That changing too much too fast can have consequences. Smart man, that Merlin, Sirius said with a weak attempt at humor. Look, Harry, before we go charging after Peter, we need a plan. We need allies. And you need to learn control. Harry nodded thoughtfully. I think I know someone who can help us. I can feel another magical presence, a girl about my age. Her magic is different, strong but organized. She's not far from here. Sirius raised an eyebrow. You can sense other magical people too. Just started to, Harry admitted. But this one stands out. Like her magic is reaching for mine somehow. Could be dangerous, Sirius warned. But then again, we could use friends right now. Just promise me you'll be careful with this power of yours. No more major magical rewrites until we understand what you're capable of. Harry grinned. I promise to try. Far away, in the forests of Albania, a wraith-like consciousness that had once been Lord Voldemort stirred. A disturbance in the fabric of magic itself had roused it from its semi-dormant state, a surge of power unlike anything felt in centuries. The heir of Merlin had awakened. The very foundations of magic were now vulnerable. And if such power could be taken. The wraith began to move with new purpose, seeking a more suitable host to begin its journey westward. The boy who had once defeated him might now be the key to his ultimate triumph. Back in Britain, in the Department of Mysteries, an ancient artifact that had lain dormant for centuries suddenly activated. Unspeakable Croaker was summoned to the chamber where it was kept, his face grave as he studied the spinning silver device. "It's just as the prophecies foretold," he murmured to his colleagues. "The architect has returned. The foundations are at risk." "Do we inform the minister?" a junior unspeakable asked nervously. Croaker shook his head. "Not yet. First, we must find the source and assess the danger. If someone truly has inherited Merlin's gift for metastructural magic, they could unravel the very laws that keep our world stable." In his office at Hogwarts, Albus Dumbledore stared at the collection of silver instruments on his desk. Several were spinning wildly, some emitting shrill whistles, and one had actually melted into a puddle of silver goo. "What have you done, Harry?" he whispered, rising quickly from his chair. The blood wards at Privet Drive had been fundamentally altered, though not destroyed. Sirius Black had escaped Azkaban through seemingly impossible means. And now, the magical monitoring devices attuned to Harry Potter were showing readings that defied explanation. Something profound had changed in the magical world. Something that threatened to upset all of Dumbledore's carefully laid plans for the greater good. As morning turned to afternoon, Harry and Sirius prepared to leave their temporary sanctuary. Harry had spent hours practicing smaller, more controlled manipulations of magic, altering the color of lights, changing the temperature of water, making objects move in ways that defied normal levitation charms. "You're getting better at the small stuff," Sirius observed as Harry caused a teacup to orbit their heads. "But I notice you're not trying anything big again." Harry shrugged. "It's tiring. And Merlin says I need to learn control before power." Sirius nodded approvingly. "Wise advice. Now, about this magical girl you sensed." A sudden knock at the door froze them both mid-conversation. Sirius transformed instantly into Padfoot, while Harry extended his senses to see who was outside. The magical signature was familiar, old, powerful, and complex. "It's Dumbledore," Harry whispered to the dog beside him. Padfoot growled low in his throat, positioning himself between Harry and the door. "I know you're in there, Harry," Dumbledore's voice called calmly. "And Sirius as well, I presume. I've come alone, and I mean you no harm. We have much to discuss." Harry looked at Padfoot questioningly. The dog hesitated, then gave a reluctant nod. "You can come in," Harry called, keeping one hand ready to manipulate the magical defenses he'd established around the cottage if necessary. The door swung open, and Albus Dumbledore entered, his bright blue eyes taking in the scene with keen interest. "Fascinating," he murmured, studying the visible magical alterations Harry had made to the cottage. "Truly remarkable. How did you find us?" Harry asked directly. Dumbledore smiled gently. "You're not the only one with unusual magical abilities, my boy. Though I must say, yours have manifested in a most unexpected way." He turned to the large black dog. "Sirius, I think we can speak more comfortably if you resume your human form. I already know you're innocent of the crimes for which you were imprisoned." After a moment's hesitation, Sirius transformed back. "Could have used that belief 5 years ago, Albus," he said bitterly. "Yes," Dumbledore acknowledged with unexpected humility. "I have made many mistakes. Leaving Harry with the Dursleys may have been among my greatest, though my intentions were to keep him safe." "Safe but miserable," Harry said flatly. "They hated me. Hated magic." Dumbledore sighed heavily. I had hoped that blood would overcome prejudice. I was wrong. He focused on Harry intently. Your aunt delivered a rather cryptic message. Something about the heir of Merlin awakening. Would you care to explain what that means, Harry? Harry exchanged glances with Sirius, who nodded encouragingly. 3 nights ago, I started having dreams about Merlin. He told me I'm his descendant through my dad's family, and that his abilities have woken up in me early. I can see magic now, the patterns and rules that make it work. And I can change them. So I've observed, Dumbledore said gravely. The modifications to the Azkaban wards were particularly impressive. As was whatever method you used to evade the Aurors yesterday. Are you here to take me back to the Dursleys? Harry asked, his voice hardening slightly. No, Dumbledore said simply. That arrangement is clearly no longer viable. However, I am concerned about your safety, and about the potential consequences of your new abilities. Sirius moved closer to Harry. He's staying with me. I'm his godfather, and James and Lily wanted me to raise him if anything happened to them. A commendable sentiment, Dumbledore allowed. But you are still a wanted man, Sirius. And Harry is now exhibiting magical abilities that will attract dangerous attention from multiple quarters. We're going to clear Sirius's name, Harry said confidently. I can find Peter Pettigrew. I can prove what really happened. Dumbledore's eyebrows rose in surprise. Indeed. That would be most helpful. But Harry, there's something else you should know. He hesitated, seemingly weighing his words carefully. The abilities you've manifested, the capacity to alter fundamental magical laws, have not been seen in centuries. The last wizard who could do what you can was indeed Merlin himself. And his power, while great, came with tremendous risks. What kind of risks? Sirius asked. Magic seeks balance, Dumbledore explained. When its foundations are altered too dramatically, there can be reactions. Backlash. Areas where magic becomes unstable or unpredictable. And there are those who will view Harry's abilities as either a threat to be eliminated or a weapon to be controlled. Harry frowned. Merlin told me similar things in my dreams. About consequences and about people who might come after me. Then he is giving you sound advice, Dumbledore said. I would add only this, proceed with caution, and perhaps allow those of us with experience to guide you in this journey. Sirius narrowed his eyes. By those of us with experience, you mean yourself? Dumbledore smiled slightly. I mean those who care for Harry's well-being. Which I believe includes both of us, Sirius. Before either could respond, Harry gasped and clutched his head. The magical patterns around them were suddenly shifting, responding to some distant disturbance. Harry. What is it? Sirius asked in alarm. Something's happening, Harry said through gritted teeth. Something big. Magic is changing somewhere. He looked up at Dumbledore with wide eyes. It's responding to me. To what I did at Azkaban. The patterns are trying to rebalance themselves. Dumbledore's expression grew grave. Where, Harry? Can you tell where this is happening? Harry closed his eyes, following the disturbed patterns outward. North. Scotland. Near a castle filled with magic. Hogwarts, Dumbledore whispered, suddenly looking his age. The castle's magic is highly responsive to external magical shifts. If the protections there are destabilizing. Without warning, Dumbledore's Phoenix Patronus erupted from his wand. Minerva, secure the students in their common rooms. The castle's magic may become unstable. The Patronus vanished to deliver the message. We need to fix this, Harry said, standing up with surprising determination for a 6-year-old. I caused it, I can fix it. Harry, no, Sirius protested. It's too dangerous. You're still learning control. But I can see what's happening, Harry insisted. The patterns at Hogwarts are trying to adapt to the changes I made in the magical law. They're overcorrecting. I just need to smooth things out. Dumbledore studied Harry intensely. You believe you can stabilize Hogwarts's magic from here? Without being physically present? Harry nodded confidently. Distance doesn't matter to the patterns. They're all connected. Dumbledore and Sirius exchanged worried glances, but before either could object further, Harry sat cross-legged on the floor and closed his eyes. In his mind's eye, Harry could see the vast, complex magical structure that was Hogwarts, 1,000 years of layered spells and enchantments, all now fluctuating dangerously as they attempted to reconcile with the changes he'd made to magical law when freeing Sirius. With gentle, careful adjustments, Harry began to soothe the agitated magic. Rather than forcing it back to its original state, he guided it toward a new equilibrium that incorporated his changes without destabilizing the castle's protections. In the Great Hall at Hogwarts, students gasped as the enchanted ceiling began to swirl with unusual patterns before settling into an even more vivid representation of the sky than before. Throughout the castle, portraits reported magical disturbances that quickly resolved themselves into enhanced versions of their original functions. Professor McGonagall, in the midst of ushering students to safety, paused as she felt the castle's magic shift and then strengthen around them. "Albus, what in Merlin's name is happening?" she whispered, unaware that her invocation was more appropriate than she knew. Back in the cottage, Harry opened his eyes, sweat beading on his forehead. "It's done. Hogwarts is stable again, better than before, actually. I fixed the weak points in the magical structure while I was at it." Dumbledore looked simultaneously impressed and troubled. "Harry, what you've just done should be impossible. Even for the most powerful adult wizards." "Yeah, well, welcome to my new normal," Harry said with a hint of childish sass that reminded them both that, powers aside, he was still just 6 years old. Sirius couldn't help but laugh, breaking the tension. James would be so proud right now. Both of the magic and the attitude. Even Dumbledore's eyes twinkled slightly. Indeed. His expression grew serious again. "However, this incident underscores what I was saying. Your abilities, while remarkable, have far-reaching consequences. You'll need proper guidance." "I've got Sirius," Harry said firmly. "And Merlin in my dreams. And..." He hesitated. "There's someone else I need to meet. Another magical kid nearby. I can sense her." Dumbledore raised an eyebrow. "You can sense other magical individuals?" Harry nodded. "Just started to. But this one feels important somehow. Perhaps we should investigate this connection," Dumbledore suggested. "After we've established a more secure situation for both you and Sirius." "You mean after you've convinced the Ministry that Sirius is innocent and I'm not some magical threat to be contained?" Harry asked shrewdly. Dumbledore regarded Harry with newfound respect. "Precisely. Which brings us back to the matter of Peter Pettigrew." "I can find him," Harry repeated. "And I've created a way to reveal the truth about what happened." "Have you indeed?" Dumbledore murmured. "Most impressive. However, we must proceed carefully. The Ministry is already in uproar over Sirius's escape. If we add your unique abilities to their concerns..." "Then don't," Sirius said simply. "Don't tell them about Harry's powers. Just help us capture Peter and expose the truth." Dumbledore considered this. A reasonable approach, for now. Those secrets have a way of revealing themselves eventually. Harry stood up, his young face set with determination. "Then let's not waste time. I'll locate Pettigrew, we'll capture him, and then Sirius will be free." "And after that?" Dumbledore asked gently. Harry exchanged glances with Sirius. "After that, we figure out what it means to be the heir of Merlin in the modern world. Together." As the three began to formulate their plan, none of them noticed the small magical disturbance in the forests of Albania growing stronger, more focused. Nor did they detect the urgent messages being exchanged within the Department of Mysteries as the unspeakables tracked the magical fluctuations to their source. The magical world was changing, rewriting itself around the awakened heir of Merlin. And nothing would ever be quite the same again. Far to the north, in the burrow near Ottery St. Catchpole, a rat with a missing toe suddenly squeaked in terror and scurried from its hiding place in Percy Weasley's bedroom. The magical connection that Harry had traced was growing stronger, pulling on the old oath that bound the marauders together. Peter Pettigrew sensed danger approaching. It was time to run again. But this time, the very laws of magic had been rewritten against him. Chapter 2, New Horizons. The rat that was Peter Pettigrew had never run so hard in his life. Something was coming for him, something that felt like the very fabric of magic itself was reaching out to grab him. He'd felt safe for years, hidden among the Weasleys, but now every instinct screamed that his deception was unraveling. He bolted from the burrow into the surrounding fields, his tiny heart pounding. If he could just get far enough, hide well enough, maybe whatever was hunting him would lose the trail. 300 miles south, Harry Potter's eyes snapped open. "He's running," he said, sitting up abruptly on the worn sofa where he'd been resting. Sirius, who'd been pacing the cottage floorboards into submission, spun around. "Pettigrew? You can still sense him? Stronger now. He's terrified." Harry closed his eyes again, following the magical thread that connected the marauders through their old oath. "He's near a big red house, lots of children, magic everywhere." "The Weasleys," Dumbledore said quietly from his chair by the cold fireplace. He'd remained after helping stabilize their situation, his presence both helpful and watchful. "Arthur Weasley works at the Ministry." "Good man. If Peter has been hiding with them—" "He's not there anymore," Harry interrupted. "He felt me looking and ran. He's in a field now, heading toward a river." Sirius transformed instantly into Padfoot, hackles raised, a low growl rumbling from his throat. "Sirius, wait," Harry said, placing a small hand on the dog's head. "We need to be smart about this. If you just grab him, it's still your word against his. We need the truth spell I made." Padfoot reluctantly transformed back, though his hands were clenched into fists. "Every second we wait, he gets further away." "Not from me," Harry said simply. He extended his hand, palm up, and concentrated. Golden threads of magic wove themselves from the air, forming the pulsing orb he'd created before, his memory truth spell. "This will show his memories of that night to anyone watching. But I need to be close enough to use it on him." Dumbledore studied the orb with undisguised fascination. "Remarkable. You've created something entirely new, yet it feels natural. As if magic itself accepts this alteration." "Because I'm not breaking the rules," Harry explained, turning the orb in his fingers. "I'm just extending them. Finding the spaces between what magic already does and pushing a little further." "Philosophically fascinating," Dumbledore murmured. "Practically dangerous. But we can discuss that later. For now, how do you propose we reach Peter before he goes to ground again?" Harry grinned suddenly, looking every bit the mischievous child he was supposed to be. "I can get us there. But you might not like how." Before either adult could object, Harry reached out and grasped two of the glowing magical lines that crisscrossed the cottage, one gold, one silver. He pulled them together, twisting them into a new configuration. The air in front of them rippled like heat rising from summer pavement. Through the distortion, they could see a field of tall grass, a muddy riverbank, and in the distance, a scurrying brown shape. "Merlin's beard," Sirius breathed. "Language," Dumbledore said automatically, though his own eyes were wide. "It's a threshold," Harry explained, a bit breathlessly. "I connected our space to his. Quick, before he gets too far." Sirius didn't hesitate. He dove through the rippling air, transforming into Padfoot mid-leap. Dumbledore followed more sedately, his wand ready. Harry came last, releasing his hold on the magical threads as he stepped through, feeling the connection snap closed behind him. They emerged in the field near the burrow, the summer sun warm on their faces. Padfoot was already racing after the fleeing rat, gaining rapidly. Pettigrew. Sirius's voice echoed from the dog somehow, raw with years of rage and grief. There's nowhere left to hide. The rat squeaked in terror and made a desperate dash for the river. But Harry was faster. He reached out with his mind, found the magical structure of the small creature's animagus form, and made a simple adjustment. Peter Pettigrew transformed back to human form involuntarily, tumbling head over heels in the grass. He scrambled up, dirty and terrified, his watery eyes darting between the approaching dog and the old wizard who'd appeared from nowhere. Albus! Peter squeaked. Thank Merlin. Black has escaped, he's mad, he's trying to kill me. Silence, Peter, Dumbledore said quietly, but with terrible weight. Padfoot transformed, and Sirius Black stood before his former friend with murder in his eyes. 12 years, Peter. 12 years in Azkaban while you hid with a wizarding family, playing pet. I had to. Peter wailed, backing toward the river. You don't understand, the Dark Lord, he would have found me, he would have killed you like you deserved. Sirius advanced step by step. Instead you killed them. My best friends. Harry's parents. Harry stepped forward, the golden orb glowing in his small hand. He doesn't need to confess, he said calmly. This will show the truth. Peter's eyes fixed on Harry with sudden, horrible recognition. You, he whispered. The boy who lived. But you're not supposed to be able to, those eyes, Lily's eyes, but the power, he was babbling, backing further away, clearly sensing something wrong about the child before him. Harry threw the orb. It struck Peter in the chest and dissolved into light that enveloped him completely. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the air above Peter shimmered, and images began to form, memories made visible for all to see. They saw Peter meeting with Voldemort, betraying the Potter's location. They saw the explosion on that terrible Halloween night, Peter cutting off his own finger to fake his death. They saw him transforming and fleeing to hide among the Weasleys, years of cowardice and deception laid bare. Sirius watched with tears streaming down his face, seeing his vindication at last but taking no joy in it. Dumbledore's expression was grave, confirming what he'd suspected but never been able to prove. And Harry watched the memories of parents he'd never known, feeling a strange detachment. The infant in those memories had been ordinary, helpless. He was something else now. The memory projection faded. Peter collapsed to his knees, sobbing. It wasn't my fault, I was scared, anyone would have done the same, anyone with your particular brand of cowardice, perhaps, Dumbledore said coldly. He raised his wand. Peter Pettigrew, you are bound for Azkaban, though I suspect your stay will be longer than Sirius's. As Dumbledore performed the binding spells, Harry felt a strange sensation, the magical oath that had connected the Marauders was dissolving, its purpose fulfilled. He watched it unravel with something like sadness. Such bonds were precious, even when twisted by betrayal. Sirius knelt beside Harry, pulling him into a fierce hug. You did it, he whispered. You cleared my name. I can be your guardian now, properly, legally. Harry hugged him back, feeling the rightness of it. Family, he said simply. Dumbledore finished his spells and turned to them. I must return to the Ministry with Pettigrew. The Wizengamot will need to convene, Sirius's record expunged. He paused, studying Harry. And we must discuss your education, young man. Hogwarts is still 5 years away for you, yet your abilities require specialized instruction. I'll teach him, Sirius said immediately. Of course, Dumbledore agreed. But there are aspects of his gift that may require additional guidance. I know of certain texts, certain experts. We'll figure it out together, Harry said firmly. But first, there's someone else I need to meet. Dumbledore raised an eyebrow. The magical presence you sensed earlier? Harry nodded. She's closer now. I think she felt what I just did. The magic I used. Another child with unusual sensitivity? Dumbledore considered. Possibly dangerous, possibly valuable. Very well. Sirius, once your name is cleared, I suggest you establish a proper residence. Harry will need stability as he develops. And I will arrange for appropriate educational materials. With that, Dumbledore disapparated with his prisoner, leaving Harry and Sirius alone in the field. Sirius looked down at his godson with something like wonder. You know, when I agreed to be your godfather, I imagined teaching you Quidditch and sneaking into the kitchens at Hogwarts. Not, whatever this is. Harry grinned up at him. We can still do that stuff. I'm still a kid, mostly. Mostly, Sirius repeated, shaking his head. Come on. Let's go find this mysterious magical girl of yours. But Harry? Try not to rewrite reality in front of Muggles, yeah. They made their way back toward the road, Harry leading by following the pull of the magical connection he felt. It grew stronger as they walked, directing them toward a nearby town. Ottery St. Catchpole was a quaint village, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone else's business. Harry and Sirius attracted some curious looks, a scruffy man in worn robes and a thin child in clothes 3 sizes too large, but no one stopped them. The connection led Harry to a bookstore. Through the window, he could see a small girl with bushy brown hair, her nose buried in a thick volume. Even from outside, Harry could see the magic around her, organized, structured, almost architectural in its precision. She's reading Hogwarts, a history, Sirius observed, peering through the window. Muggle-born, probably. Parents are dentists, if I remember the magical census correctly. Harry pushed open the door and entered. The girl looked up, and their eyes met. Hermione Granger felt something shift in her world the moment she saw the green-eyed boy entering the bookstore. She'd always been sensitive to strange things, knowing when the phone was about to ring, finding lost objects in impossible places, occasionally making things happen when she was upset. But this was different. This boy felt like magic itself had taken human form. Hello, Harry said, approaching her table. I'm Harry. You're Hermione, right? Hermione's eyes widened. How did you know my name? Have we met? Not exactly. Harry sat across from her, uninvited but somehow not rude about it. I can feel your magic. It's very organized. Like a library. Hermione stared at him. My magic? What do you mean? Are you saying magic is real? That I'm not just, she stopped, glancing around to make sure no one was listening. That I'm not just imagining things. Magic is definitely real, Harry confirmed. I'm magical too. But I'm different. I can see how magic works, and change it. Sirius had entered quietly and was browsing nearby, keeping watch while giving Harry space for this clearly important conversation. Hermione's logical mind warred with her desire to believe. That's impossible. If magic existed, there would be evidence, studies, scientific documentation. There is, Harry interrupted. But it's hidden. There's a whole magical world, Hermione. A school called Hogwarts where we learn to use our abilities. And I can prove it. He reached out and touched the table between them. Where his finger traced, golden light followed, forming intricate patterns that Hermione could actually see. That's just a trick, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. Then watch this. Harry focused on the book she was reading, a Muggle novel about ordinary school life. He found the magical potential in the paper and ink, the possibility of what it could become, and gave it a gentle push. The book transformed. Its cover changed to leather embossed with moving illustrations. The pages became parchment filled with diagrams that moved and changed as you watched. The title now read, A Beginner's Guide to Practical Magic. Hermione's mouth fell open. She reached out tentatively, touching the transformed book. The pages were warm, alive with energy. "This is real," she whispered. "This is actually real." "Harry," Sirius said quietly, warningly. "That's fairly conspicuous magic." Harry waved his hand, and the book returned to its original form. "Sorry. I got excited. I've never met someone my age who could see magic like I can." "Well, not exactly like I can, but you know what I mean." Hermione was still staring at the book. "You changed its fundamental nature. The molecular structure, the information content, everything. Do you understand what that means? The energy requirements alone should be." She stopped, realizing she was babbling. "Sorry. I do that when I'm nervous. Or excited. Or thinking." Harry grinned. "I like it. You think like I see, looking for the patterns, the rules." "Who are you?" Hermione asked directly. "Really?" "Harry Potter. My parents were magical, but they died when I was a baby. I've been living with Muggle relatives who hate magic. But 3 days ago, something changed. I started having dreams about Merlin, and when I woke up, I could see magic everywhere." Hermione's eyes went impossibly wider. "Merlin? As in the Merlin? King Arthur's wizard?" "The same. He says I'm his descendant, and his abilities have awakened in me. I can see the laws of magic and rewrite them." Harry said this matter-of-factly, as if discussing the weather. "That's..." Hermione struggled for words. "That's the most significant magical event in recorded history. If you're telling the truth, you could reshape the entire magical world." "That's what people keep telling me," Harry said with a slight grimace. "But mostly I just want to learn about my parents and have a family and maybe not be hunted by evil wizards." "Evil wizards?" Hermione's voice rose slightly. Sirius intervened, sliding into the seat beside Harry. "Perhaps we should continue this conversation somewhere more private." "Hermione, is it?" "I'm Sirius Black, Harry's godfather. I think you and your parents should know what's coming for your daughter." Hermione studied him with the same analytical intensity she'd applied to Harry. "You're the escaped prisoner. The news said you were dangerous." "I was framed," Sirius said simply. "By the same man who betrayed Harry's parents to their deaths. We just captured him, with Harry's help. My name will be cleared within days." Hermione looked between them, her mind racing. Everything about this situation screamed danger and impossibility. But she'd spent her whole life feeling like she didn't fit, like there was something more she couldn't quite reach. And here were two people, no, a person and a magical godfather, offering her the truth she'd always sensed existed. "I need to tell my parents," she said finally. "They deserve to know. And they'll want to meet you properly, Mr. Black." Sirius smiled, the expression transforming his gaunt features. "Call me Sirius. And yes, absolutely. Muggle parents deserve to know what their magical children are getting into. More than some wizarding families manage, honestly." They arranged to meet at the Granger house that evening. Hermione left the bookstore in a daze, her ordinary book clutched to her chest as if it might transform again at any moment. Harry watched her go, feeling the connection between them settle into something comfortable and right. "She's going to be important," he said to Sirius. "Oh. You can see that too?" "Not exactly. I just feel it. Like when I knew I needed to free you. Some things just fit." Sirius ruffled Harry's hair. "You're going to be a handful, aren't you?" "Probably." The Granger residence was a tidy brick house on a quiet street. When Harry and Sirius arrived that evening, they were met by two understandably nervous dentists and their daughter, who had apparently spent the intervening hours researching everything she could find about magic and Muggle sources. "Most of it's nonsense, of course," Hermione announced as she led them to the sitting room. But some of the historical patterns suggest actual magical events being reinterpreted as myth or miracle. Harry nodded approvingly. That's smart. The magical world hides in plain sight. They have whole departments dedicated to keeping muggles from noticing. Mr. Granger, a serious man with kind eyes, cleared his throat. Mr. Black, Sirius, you understand our concern. Our daughter tells us she's magical, that there's a whole hidden world, and that you were until recently imprisoned for mass murder. Understandable skepticism, Sirius acknowledged. The short version, I was betrayed by a friend, spent 12 years in prison for crimes I didn't commit, and was freed yesterday when Harry helped me capture the real traitor. He produced a copy of that morning's Daily Prophet, which featured Sirius's exoneration as the lead story. Mrs. Granger read the article with growing amazement. This says you transformed into a dog to escape. That's not possible. Animagus transformation, Hermione said promptly. The ability to turn into a specific animal at will. Rare and difficult, requiring registration with the Ministry of Magic. Sirius raised an eyebrow at her. You've been doing your research. I want to be prepared, Hermione said simply. The conversation continued for hours. Sirius explained the basics of the magical world, Hogwarts, the Ministry, the statute of secrecy that kept magic hidden from muggles. Harry demonstrated small, controlled uses of his abilities, careful not to do anything too dramatic in the Granger home. And this power of yours, Mr. Granger asked Harry carefully. To change magic itself. That seems extraordinarily dangerous. It is, Harry admitted. I'm trying to learn control. Merlin warns me about consequences in my dreams. But I also think I can do good things. I cleared Sirius's name. I can help people. Power always comes with responsibility, Mrs. Granger said, sounding like she was quoting something. Hermione, are you certain you want to be part of this world? It sounds dangerous. Hermione looked at Harry, then at her parents. I've always known I was different. That I didn't quite fit. If there's a world where I belong, where I can learn what I can really do. She took a deep breath. Yes. I want to go to Hogwarts. I want to learn magic properly. You'll need supplies, Sirius said. Wand, robes, books. Normally this happens just before first year, but given the circumstances. He glanced at Harry. Given Harry's unique situation, I think earlier preparation would be wise. Can we go to the magical shopping area? Harry asked eagerly. Diagon Alley. Sirius hesitated. Normally, yes. But with your abilities becoming known, Harry, there may be those who would try to exploit or harm you. We should be cautious. Then I'll make us hard to find, Harry said simply. He closed his eyes, reaching out to the magical patterns around them. With careful precision, he wove a new configuration, a subtle alteration to how their magical signatures would be perceived by tracking spells. There. Now anyone trying to find us magically will get confused. They'll sense us in multiple places at once, or not at all, depending on how they look. Sirius checked with his own limited ability to sense magical signatures and found Harry's description accurate. Useful trick. Though I worry about you relying on these abilities before fully understanding them. That's why I need to learn, Harry said. Both the normal way and my way. It was decided that Sirius would take Harry to acquire basic magical supplies, while the Grangers would begin preparing Hermione for her eventual Hogwarts education. The two children exchanged addresses. Hermione's parents were surprisingly accepting of Owl Post, and promised to stay in touch. As Harry and Sirius left that evening, Hermione caught Harry's arm. Thank you, she said quietly. For showing me the truth. For making me believe. Harry smiled. We're going to be friends, Hermione. I can see that pattern clearly. The next weeks were a blur of activity. Sirius's name was officially cleared by the Wisengamot, complete with public apology and substantial compensation for his wrongful imprisonment. He used a portion of this to purchase a proper home, a modest but comfortable house in a wizarding village called Godric's Hollow, not far from where James and Lily had once lived. Harry insisted on visiting his parents' graves. They stood together in the small cemetery, Harry reading the names on the headstone, James Potter, Lily Potter, and the dates that marked their too short lives. "I can almost see them," Harry whispered. "Not with my eyes, but with my magic. Their echoes are still here, in the patterns they left behind." Sirius knelt beside him, placing a hand on the grass. "I miss them every day. Merlin says there might be a way to talk to them. Not truly bring them back, that's impossible, even for me, but to reach the echoes, the memories they left in the magic around them." Sirius looked at him sharply. "Is that possible? Even the resurrection stone only shows shadows, not true communication." Harry closed his eyes, extending his senses into the ground beneath them, the air around them, the very fabric of the magical space where his parents had lived and died. He found traces, faint, fragmentary, but present. Love magic, sacrifice magic, the most powerful and ancient forms of magical expression. "I need time," he said finally. "And I need to understand more about how soul magic works. Merlin says it's different from other magic, more fundamental, less flexible." "Then you'll learn," Sirius said firmly. "At your own pace, in your own way." Their new home in Godric's Hollow became a center of quiet innovation. Harry spent hours each day exploring his abilities, always careful, always mindful of Merlin's warnings. He learned to see the magical signatures of spells, to understand how they were constructed and how they could be modified. Hermione visited frequently, her parents having accepted Sirius as a responsible guardian and Harry as a positive influence on their daughter. The two children developed a working relationship that surprised adults with its effectiveness, Harry's intuitive grasp of magical structures complementing Hermione's methodical research and analysis. "You're essentially doing applied arithmancy," Hermione concluded one afternoon, watching Harry modify a levitation charm to work on multiple objects simultaneously. "But without the calculations. You just see the solution." "I see the patterns," Harry corrected. "But I don't always understand why they work." "That's where you help. You figure out the theory, I figure out the application." Together, they began documenting Harry's abilities, creating what Hermione insisted on calling the Merlin Protocol, a systematic approach to understanding and safely utilizing metastructural magic. Sirius, meanwhile, worked on establishing normalcy. He connected with old friends who hadn't abandoned him, began consulting on defense against the dark arts for the ministry, and most importantly, learned to be a parent to a child who was anything but ordinary. Dumbledore visited periodically, bringing books and advice, though Harry sensed the old wizard's concern about his growing power. Their relationship was cordial but cautious, Dumbledore wanted to guide, while Harry insisted on finding his own path. It was during one of Dumbledore's visits that Harry made his breakthrough with soul magic. The headmaster had brought a collection of texts on magical theory, including several restricted volumes on the nature of the soul. "These are dangerous studies," Dumbledore warned. "The magic that affects the soul is the most serious and consequential. Even you, Harry, must approach with extreme caution." Harry spent days poring over the texts, his understanding growing even as his frustration mounted. Soul magic operated on principles that resisted his usual methods of perception and modification. It was as if this one area of magic was fundamentally different, older, more fixed, less amenable to change. "The soul is the foundation of magical identity," he explained to Hermione one evening. "You can't rewrite someone's soul without rewriting who they are. That's why it's different from other magic. It's not just rules, it's essence." "But you said you might be able to reach your parents' echoes?" Hermione prompted. "Echoes aren't souls. They're impressions, memories left in the magical environment." "Like?" Harry searched for an analogy. "Like how a recording isn't the actual sound, but a copy of it." He spent another week in careful experimentation, learning to distinguish between soul magic and the magical echoes that surrounded it. Finally, he felt ready. On a quiet evening in Godric's Hollow, with Sirius and Hermione watching anxiously, Harry sat in the center of a complex pattern of his own design. He'd woven together threads of memory magic, love magic, and his own unique metastructural abilities, creating something that had never existed before. "I'm not changing anything," he whispered, more to himself than to the others. "I'm just opening a door that was always there, but that no one could see." The air shimmered. Golden light formed shapes, vague at first, then resolving into two figures that Harry recognized from photographs Sirius had shared. His parents, not quite solid, not quite ghostly, but present and aware. "Harry." The voice was his mother's, filled with wonder and love. "Oh, my baby, you've grown so much." "Merlin's blood," his father breathed, looking at his son with pride. "We can feel it, Harry. The power you carry. Be careful with it, son." Sirius was openly weeping. Hermione was taking notes with shaking hands. And Harry was finally meeting the people who had given their lives for him, even if only for a moment. "Tell me about yourselves," Harry said, his own voice thick with emotion. "Tell me everything." The echoes couldn't stay long, the magic that sustained them was demanding, and Harry was careful not to push too hard. But in those precious minutes, he learned about his parents' love for each other, their hopes for him, their sacrifices. "We're always with you," Lily's echo said as it began to fade. "In your heart, in your magic, in every good choice you make." "Make us proud, Harry," James added. "But more importantly, make yourself proud. Be the person you want to be, not what others expect." Then they were gone, but the connection remained, a thread of golden light that Harry could sense, ready to be drawn upon when he needed to remember their love. Sirius pulled Harry into a hug that spoke of shared grief and shared healing. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you for giving me that moment with them." "They're not gone," Harry said, his small face serious. "Not really. They're part of the magic now, part of everything. And so am I, and so are you. We're all connected in the patterns." Hermione finally set down her quill. "Harry, what you just did, it shouldn't be possible. Even by your standards. You manipulated the boundary between life and death, however briefly." "I didn't manipulate death," Harry corrected gently. "I found the love they left behind and gave it voice." "That's not the same thing. Death is still absolute. But love can echo forever." The weeks turned to months. Harry and Hermione grew closer, their friendship deepening through shared discovery and the unique pressures of their situation. Hermione's parents, initially wary, came to accept Harry as family, grateful for the joy he brought their daughter. Sirius flourished in his role as guardian, his natural energy and mischief finding appropriate outlets in parenting. He taught Harry Quidditch basics in secret, introduced him to magical creatures, and most importantly, gave him the unconditional love and acceptance he'd never known with the Dursleys. But shadows were gathering. In Albania, Voldemort's wraith had found a host, a desperate wizard willing to surrender his body for promises of power. The Dark Lord was moving again, drawn west by rumors of unprecedented magical activity. In the Ministry of Magic, Lucius Malfoy schemed. The heir of Merlin represented either the greatest threat or the greatest opportunity his family had ever faced. If such power could be controlled, directed. And in the Department of Mysteries, Unspeakable Croaker continued his research, growing increasingly concerned about the stability of magical law itself. The changes Harry had made, however small individually, were accumulating. If the rate of alteration increased, the very foundations of magic might become unpredictable. Harry sensed none of this directly, but Merlin's dreams grew more urgent. "The balance shifts," the ancient wizard warned. "Your power draws attention, young heir. Not all who come will be enemies, but not all who come as friends will remain so." "Are you saying I should hide?" Harry asked in the dreamscape. I am saying you should choose your battles wisely. Some conflicts advance your growth. Others merely distract from your true purpose. Which is? Merlin's starlight beard shimmered as he smiled. That, my heir, you must discover for yourself. I can guide, but I cannot command. Your path is yours to forge. Harry woke with the dream's weight still upon him. Downstairs, he could hear Sirius moving about, preparing breakfast. Outside, the summer sun was rising on another day in a world that was changing faster than anyone realized. He dressed quickly and went to find his godfather, ready to face whatever came next. The heir of Merlin had awakened, and the magical world would never be the same. But first, there was breakfast to eat, spells to practice, and a best friend to meet for another day of discovery. Harry Potter was still, after all, only 6 years old. Whatever destiny awaited, he would face it on his own terms. Chapter 3, First Moves. Harry, you can't just make a house appear out of nowhere. Sirius's voice carried across the empty field where they stood, a mixture of awe and exasperation that had become his default tone in the 6 months since Harry's abilities had awakened. Not out of nowhere, Harry corrected, his small face scrunched in concentration as he manipulated the glowing lines only he could see. I'm just folding space a bit. The house already exists, I'm just making it exist here too. Hermione, clipboard in hand as always, was taking rapid notes. You're creating a dimensional overlay? That's beyond an EWT-level magical theory, Harry. Less talking, more focusing, Harry muttered, his hands tracing complex patterns in the air. The field around them shimmered like a mirage on hot pavement. For a brief moment, double vision struck all three of them, the empty field overlaid with the ghostly image of a modest stone cottage. Then reality settled with a soft whump that they felt rather than heard, and the cottage stood before them, solid and real. Home sweet home, Harry grinned, looking pale but satisfied. Safe from pretty much everyone who might want to find us. Sirius approached cautiously, running a hand along the stone wall. It feels real. Completely solid. It is real, Harry assured him, swaying slightly from the effort. It's our old place from Godric's Hollow, but I've moved it somewhere unplottable. And I've added a few special features. Their residence in Godric's Hollow had become increasingly uncomfortable as Harry's abilities became known in the wizarding world. Weekly visits from ministry officials, just checking in, constant owls from magical researchers wanting to study him, and the unsettling feeling of being watched had convinced Sirius they needed a more secure location. So Harry had created one. The wards? Sirius asked, slipping into his protective godfather mode. Better than Hogwarts, Harry said with simple confidence. Nobody gets in without an invitation directly from me. Not even Dumbledore. The three of them entered the cottage, which looked exactly like their home in Godric's Hollow on the outside but revealed a surprisingly spacious interior. The main room had tall windows that somehow showed a peaceful forest view despite the field outside, comfortable furniture, and walls lined with bookshelves. Expanded space charm. Hermione guessed, examining the dimensions with a critical eye. Something like that, Harry admitted, flopping onto the couch. I kind of rewrote how space works inside the boundary. We've got about 5 times the room we had before. Sirius whistled, impressed despite himself. Just don't forget to eat and sleep, kiddo. These big magic projects take a lot out of you. That was the understatement of the year. Harry's abilities had grown exponentially since the first awakening, but they demanded tremendous energy. Each major magical rewriting left him exhausted, sometimes for days. It was a limitation that frustrated him but also kept his power in check, a natural balance that even he couldn't overcome. So this is home now? Hermione asked, already examining the bookshelves with interest. For as long as we need it, Harry confirmed. I've set up a connection to your parents' house too. There's a door in your bedroom closet that leads directly here. Hermione's eyes widened. You created a permanent portal between 2 locations. That's I know. Impossible, revolutionary, fundamentally alters magical transportation theory, Harry finished with a grin. Your parents said it was fine as long as they can lock it from their side. Sirius was already exploring the cottage's other rooms. Harry. There's a potions lab down here. And a training room upstairs, Harry called back. We need to start learning actual spells, not just theory. Both of us, he added, nodding to Hermione. The sanctuary established, they settled into a new routine. Mornings were for traditional magical education, Sirius teaching them the basics of charms, transfiguration, and defensive magic using training wands he'd acquired through his ministry contacts. Afternoons were devoted to Harry's unique abilities, with Hermione documenting every discovery in her meticulously organized notebooks. Evenings were for being kids, playing Exploding Snap, flying on the training broom Sirius had bought Harry, much to Hermione's disapproval, and reading stories of magical adventures that seemed tame compared to their daily lives. 3 weeks after establishing their sanctuary, they received their first visitor, Albus Dumbledore, responding to the magical invitation Harry had reluctantly sent. Most impressive, the old wizard commented, studying the cottage's magical structure. You've essentially created your own pocket dimension anchored to multiple physical locations. The theoretical applications alone are extraordinary. It's just home, Harry said with a shrug, though he couldn't quite hide his pride. They gathered in the sitting room, an odd quartet, ancient wizard, reformed prisoner, genius muggleborn, and the 6-year-old who could rewrite reality. I've come with news, Dumbledore said, accepting a cup from Sirius. Both good and concerning. The good, the Wizengamot has officially expunged all charges against Sirius and awarded additional compensation for the miscarriage of justice. Sirius raised his cup in mock toast. Only took half a year of legal wrangling after the actual criminal confessed. Efficiency at its finest. Indeed. Dumbledore's eyes twinkled briefly before growing serious again. The concerning news is twofold. First, Lucius Malfoy has been making inquiries about educational options for specially gifted, magical children. He's proposing a new program within the ministry, ostensibly to nurture exceptional talents from an early age. He wants Harry, Sirius growled. He wants to control Harry, Dumbledore corrected. Or more precisely, to control access to Harry's abilities. The proposal includes mandatory registration of children showing unusual magical talent, regular assessment by ministry specialists, and appropriate placement for optimal development. Harry snorted. Not happening. Indeed not, Dumbledore agreed. I've been able to delay the proposal through procedural means, but Lucius is persistent and has the minister's ear. And the second bit of concerning news? Hermione prompted, quill poised over her ever-present notebook. The Department of Mysteries has detected anomalies in what they call the fundamental magical constants. Measurements that have remained stable for centuries are showing small but significant fluctuations. Harry sat up straighter. Because of what I've been doing. They believe so, though they haven't traced the source conclusively. Dumbledore fixed Harry with a penetrating gaze. Their lead researcher, Unspeakable Croaker, has requested a meeting with what he terms the source of the disturbances. I believe he suspects it may be you, Harry. Should I meet with him? Harry asked, looking to both Sirius and Dumbledore for guidance. Sirius frowned. The Unspeakables play by their own rules, Harry. They're not necessarily dangerous, but their priorities are abstract. They care about magical knowledge above individuals. Which makes them both potential allies and potential threats, Dumbledore added. Croaker himself is a reasonable man. If you choose to meet him, I would suggest doing so on your own terms, in a location where you control the variables. Harry nodded thoughtfully. I'll send him an invitation here. But Sirius stays with me the whole time. Reasonable caution, Dumbledore approved. Now, I've brought something else you might find useful. He withdrew a slim volume bound in faded leather from his robes. This is Merlin's personal grimoire, or rather, a copy of portions that were preserved. The original is mostly lost to time, but these fragments might provide insight into your abilities. Harry accepted the book reverently. Even before opening it, he could feel the resonance between its magic and his own, a harmony that confirmed its authenticity. "Thank you," he said sincerely. "This means a lot." Dumbledore nodded. "Use it wisely." "And Harry?" "The magical fluctuations concern me. Whatever you're changing, remember that magic seeks balance. Every action creates reaction, often in unexpected ways." After Dumbledore left, Harry spent hours poring over the grimoire, Hermione reading over his shoulder and occasionally gasping at particularly revolutionary magical concepts. "Listen to this," Harry said excitedly. "Magic flows not as discrete spells but as continuous streams of potential, shaped by will and knowledge. The wizard who sees beyond incantation to the underlying pattern can reshape the stream itself. He's describing exactly what I can do. But look at this warning," Hermione pointed to a passage further down. "Alterations to the fundamental patterns create ripples across all magical expressions. What seems a small change may amplify across time and space, returning as a wave none can withstand." Sirius, who had been pretending to nap nearby while actually keeping protective watch, opened one eye. Translation: Don't mess with magical foundations unless you're prepared for consequences. "Right," Harry agreed, his enthusiasm tempered. "Small changes. Careful testing. Document everything." "Speaking of documentation," Hermione said, flipping through her notes, "we should prepare for the meeting with Unspeakable Croaker. What exactly do we tell him about your abilities?" Harry considered this. "The truth, mostly. But not everything. We don't tell him about communicating with my parents or how I moved the house. Just the basics of how I perceive magical structures." 2 days later, Unspeakable Croaker arrived at their sanctuary, having followed the magical invitation Harry had sent. He was a tall, thin man with sharp features and observant eyes that seemed to notice everything at once. "Fascinating spatial manipulation," he commented immediately, examining the cottage. "Self-sustained, yet anchored to multiple reference points. The theoretical underpinnings alone would earn you a mastery." "Mr. Croaker," Harry greeted him, extending a hand with adult-like formality. "Thank you for coming." "Thank you for the invitation," Croaker replied, shaking Harry's hand while his eyes performed a different kind of examination. "You're the source, then? The origin of the fluctuations we've been measuring?" Harry nodded. "Probably. I've been making some adjustments to how magic works." They settled in the sitting room, with Sirius maintaining a casual but ready posture by the fireplace and Hermione prepared to take notes. "Let me be direct," Croaker said after preliminary pleasantries. "The magical constants we monitor have maintained stable values for over 8 centuries. In the past 6 months, we've recorded 27 distinct instances of fluctuation. Small, but measurable. Cumulatively concerning." "How concerning?" Harry asked bluntly. "Imagine magical law as a foundation supporting a vast structure," Croaker explained. "Small cracks may seem insignificant, but enough of them, in the right places, well, foundations can fail catastrophically rather than gradually." "I'm not creating cracks," Harry objected. "I'm making improvements. Refinements. From your perspective, perhaps." Croaker leaned forward. "May I ask what specific refinements you've implemented?" Harry glanced at Sirius, who gave a slight nod. "I modified the Azkaban wards to allow Sirius to escape. I created a truth-revealing spell to expose Pettigrew's memories. I stabilized Hogwarts' magical infrastructure when it started reacting to my changes. And I've made various smaller adjustments to everyday spells, mostly improving efficiency." Croaker's expression remained neutral, but his fingers twitched slightly, the only sign of his amazement. "And how exactly do you accomplish these modifications?" "I can see magical structures, the patterns that make spells work. And I can adjust them. Change parameters, redirect energy flows, create exceptions or new conditions. Without incantation. Without a wand. Harry nodded. It's like the magic already knows what I want it to do. I just have to show it the path. Croaker was silent for a long moment. Mr. Potter, have you ever heard of the Merlin threshold? No, Harry admitted. What is it? A theoretical concept in advanced magical research. The point at which magical manipulation becomes self-sustaining, where the wizard no longer channels magic but rather directs magic to channel itself. No one has achieved it in recorded history. Croaker studied Harry intently. No adult wizard, at any rate. I have Merlin's blood, Harry said simply. His abilities woke up in me early because of what happened when Voldemort tried to kill me as a baby. Hermione gasped slightly at his directness, but Croaker merely nodded as if confirming a hypothesis. The department has suspected a bloodline activation. The patterns match historical accounts of Merlin's abilities. He hesitated. Mr. Potter, I'm not here to stop you or control you. The Department of Mysteries exists to understand magic in all its forms. But I must caution you, the changes you're making, however beneficial they seem, are creating cumulative stress on the magical ecosystem. What exactly might happen? Sirius asked, speaking for the first time. Unpredictability, Croaker said gravely. Magic becoming less stable, less reliable. Spells functioning differently than intended. Magical creatures developing new and possibly dangerous traits. Enchantments failing catastrophically. He paused. In the worst case, a cascade effect, magical law itself becoming fluid and chaotic. Harry felt a chill that had nothing to do with the room's temperature. So you're saying I should stop? I'm saying proceed with extreme caution. Document your changes. Monitor their effects. And perhaps consult with the department before implementing major alterations. Croaker produced a small silver instrument from his robes. This will measure magical stability in your vicinity. If the readings go into the red zone, I would strongly advise halting all experimental modifications until the values normalize. Harry accepted the instrument thoughtfully. I appreciate the warning. And the lack of demands or threats. The department isn't the ministry, Mr. Potter. We serve knowledge, not political agendas. Croaker rose to leave. I would welcome further collaboration. Your abilities represent an unprecedented opportunity to understand magic at its most fundamental level. After Croaker departed, the three of them sat in contemplative silence. Well, that was surprisingly reasonable, Sirius finally said. He's scared, Hermione observed. He hit it well, but the way he talked about cascade effects, he's genuinely worried about what Harry could accidentally cause. Harry examined the silver instrument, which showed steady blue readings at present. Merlin warned me about consequences too. I've been careful, but maybe not careful enough. You've been learning, Sirius said firmly. That's what kids do. They make mistakes and learn from them. Most kids' mistakes don't risk destabilizing the foundations of magic, Harry pointed out wryly. Before Sirius could respond, a sharp pain lanced through Harry's scar. He gasped, clapping a hand to his forehead as a flood of alien emotion washed over him, hunger, rage, and terrible purpose. Harry! Hermione cried, dropping her notebook and rushing to his side. What's wrong? Someone's looking for me, Harry managed through gritted teeth. Someone with broken magic. Fractured soul. Sirius's wand was instantly in his hand. Voldemort? Harry nodded, the pain already fading to a dull throb. He's close. Really close. And he's not alone. The cottage's magical alarms activated, subtle chimes that grew in urgency as an unknown presence tested the outer wards. Harry extended his magical senses, perceiving the nature of the attack. It's clever, he said, rising shakily to his feet. They're not trying to break through the wards directly. They're unfolding them. Looking for the seams in how I constructed them. Can they get through? Sirius asked, already moving toward the cottage's defensive positions they'd prepared for just such an eventuality. Not easily. But whoever's working on the wards knows what they're doing. Harry closed his eyes, tracing the magical attacks and counteracting them in real time. It's two people, one with normal magical signature, one with something wrong, twisted. Voldemort and a host, Sirius concluded grimly. Probably someone with specialized magical knowledge. Hermione was rapidly flipping through reference books. If Voldemort is still in wraith form, he'd need a willing host to perform complex magic. Someone knowledgeable but vulnerable to possession. It doesn't matter who it is, Harry said, his voice hardening. They're not getting in. He made a sharp gesture, and the cottage's interior glowed briefly as additional defensive layers activated. Outside, a figure screamed in pain as their magical probing was forcefully rebuffed. I've sealed us completely, Harry explained. Nothing gets in or out except through the escape routes. Those escape routes had been Sirius's insistence, permanent magical passages to 3 secure locations that could be activated instantly if they needed to flee. One led to a safe house in London, one to a remote cottage in Ireland, and one directly to Dumbledore's office at Hogwarts. Should we evacuate? Hermione asked, remarkably calm despite the danger. Harry shook his head. Not yet. I want to know what they're after specifically. And I want to see who's helping Voldemort. Through his magical senses, Harry monitored the attackers' movements. They'd retreated from the direct assault on the wards but hadn't left. Instead, they were attempting something else, a spell Harry hadn't encountered before, directed not at the wards but at him personally. They're trying to establish a connection to me, he realized aloud. Through my scar. It's soul magic. The pain in his forehead intensified as Voldemort attempted to leverage the mysterious connection that existed between them. Harry could feel the Dark Lord's presence pressing against his mind, seeking entry. Unlike normal magic, Harry couldn't simply rewrite this connection. Soul magic operated by different rules, deeper, more fundamental, resistant to his usual methods. This was the limitation he discovered in his studies, the one area where Merlin's abilities showed clear boundaries. Block it out, Harry, Sirius urged, seeing his godson's pain. Whatever he's doing, don't let him in. I can't change soul magic, Harry gasped. But I can redirect it. With careful precision, Harry grasped the magical connection Voldemort was trying to establish and inverted it. Instead of allowing the Dark Lord access to his mind, he opened a narrow channel into Voldemort's thoughts. What he saw shocked him. Voldemort wasn't just seeking Harry, he was desperate to understand and obtain the ability to rewrite magic itself. In the Dark Lord's fractured mind, Harry saw visions of unstoppable power, of magical law bent entirely to Voldemort's will, of a world remade in his image. And he saw the host, a nervous-looking man with a purple turban. A face Harry didn't recognize but somehow knew would be significant in his future. Quirrell, the name came to Harry unbidden, knowledge flowing backward through the connection. His name is Quirinus Quirrell. He was traveling in Albania. Voldemort possessed him because he has specialized knowledge of magical theory. Sirius looked alarmed. Harry, are you reading his mind? Not exactly. He tried to access my thoughts through the scar connection, but I reversed it. I'm getting flashes. Fragments. Harry winced as another surge of pain hit him. He knows I'm looking back now. He's angry. Scared, even. Outside the cottage, Quirrell/Voldemort howled in frustrated rage as their magical attack was not only repelled but turned against them. Dark magic flared as they attempted to sever the connection Harry had established. Harry seized this opportunity. While Voldemort was distracted with closing the mental link, Harry carefully examined the magical signature of the attack on their wards. He memorized its patterns, its structure, the unique magical fingerprint of both Voldemort and his host. "I've got him," Harry announced, sweat beading on his forehead from the effort. "If he attacks again, we'll know it's him instantly. And I've added his signature to the exclusion list for all our wards." The presence outside suddenly vanished, not gradually but all at once, as if they'd apparat away in haste. "They're gone," Harry confirmed, sagging with relief as the pain in his scar faded. "For now." Sirius moved quickly to his side, checking for any injuries or magical after-effects. "Are you alright?" Mind connections with Dark Lords aren't exactly standard healing book material. "I'm fine," Harry assured him, though he looked pale and drained. "But we need to tell Dumbledore. Voldemort has a body now, sort of. And he's specifically targeting me for my ability to rewrite magic." "Of course he is," Hermione said grimly, already composing a message to the headmaster. "Your powers are exactly what he'd want most, the ability to remake reality according to his desires." "But I can't change soul magic," Harry reminded them, a realization that was both frustrating and oddly comforting. "There are limits, even for me. And from what I saw in his mind, Voldemort's soul is wrong. Damaged. Split somehow." Sirius exchanged a significant look with Hermione. "Horcruxes," he said quietly. "It's the only explanation for how he survived that night." "Or what?" Harry asked. "Never mind for now," Sirius said quickly. "First, we secure the cottage further. Then we contact Dumbledore. Then, and only then, we talk about dark soul magic and what it might mean for dealing with Voldemort permanently." While Sirius sent an emergency Patronus to Dumbledore, Harry and Hermione analyzed the attack patterns, looking for weaknesses in their defenses that could be addressed. "The wards held perfectly," Hermione noted with surprise. "Your design was flawless, Harry." "Not flawless," Harry corrected. "He found the dimensional folding points, the places where I connected our space to the outside world. Given enough time, he might have been able to unravel them." Harry closed his eyes, visualizing the magical structure of their sanctuary. With careful precision, he strengthened the weak points, adding layers of protection specifically calibrated to resist the type of magical unfolding Quirrell had attempted. "There," he said finally. "That should hold against that particular attack. But we need something more comprehensive for the future." An idea was forming in Harry's mind, a radical approach to protection that went beyond traditional wards. He began sketching magical diagrams in the air, golden light trailing from his fingers as he worked through the concept. "What are you thinking?" Hermione asked, recognizing his invention face as she called it. "Something new," Harry said absently, focused on the patterns taking shape. "A reflexive ward system. Instead of just blocking attacks, it learns from them and adapts automatically." "That's incredibly complex magic," Hermione said, eyes widening as she grasped the implications. "You're essentially creating a semi-sentient defensive system." "Not sentient," Harry corrected. "More like, magically reactive. It observes attack patterns and evolves countermeasures without needing my direct input." Before he could implement this new system, Dumbledore arrived through the Floo connection Harry had reluctantly established for emergencies. The old wizard looked grave as Sirius quickly explained what had happened. "Quirinus Quirrell," Dumbledore repeated, troubled. "He was being considered for the defense against the dark arts position at Hogwarts next year. A brilliant theoretical mind, though somewhat lacking in practical experience. I had no idea he traveled to Albania." "Well, he's carrying Voldemort around now," Sirius said bluntly. "And they're specifically targeting Harry for his abilities." Dumbledore turned to Harry. "You said you glimpsed Voldemort's mind. What exactly did you see regarding his interest in your powers?" Harry hesitated, organizing his thoughts. "He wants the ability to rewrite magical law. He sees it as the ultimate power, beyond any spell or ritual. But there's something else." He frowned, trying to capture a fleeting impression. "He thinks my abilities might help him repair something. Something broken inside him." His soul, Dumbledore said quietly. Tom always did hate imperfection in himself above all else. Can you tell us about Horcruxes now? Harry asked directly. Sirius mentioned them, and I saw fragments in Voldemort's mind. Something about splitting a soul. Dumbledore looked sharply at Sirius, who shrugged unapologetically. He needs to know what he's up against, Albus. With a heavy sigh, Dumbledore nodded. Very well. But this information is extremely dangerous, and I must ask all of you to treat it with the utmost caution. He paused, gathering his thoughts. A Horcrux is the darkest of magical objects, a container in which a wizard has hidden a fragment of their soul, torn away through the supreme act of evil, murder. Harry listened with growing horror as Dumbledore explained how Voldemort had likely created multiple Horcruxes in his quest for immortality, how this explained his survival after the killing curse rebounded, and how it complicated any effort to defeat him permanently. So we have to find and destroy all these soul containers before we can actually kill him? Harry asked, his young voice incongruously discussing matters of death and dark magic. That is my belief, yes, Dumbledore confirmed. I have been researching possible Horcruxes since that night, though with limited success. Harry was quiet for a moment, processing this information. I can't directly affect soul magic, he said finally. But I might be able to create a detection system, something that resonates with the specific magical frequency of these Horcruxes. That would be invaluable, Dumbledore acknowledged. However, I must caution you against direct contact with such objects. The soul fragment within would likely attempt to possess or influence anyone who handles it, especially someone with your unique magical sensitivity. Hermione, who had been unusually quiet during this explanation, finally spoke up. If Harry can create a detection system, and we locate these Horcruxes, how exactly do we destroy them? There are very few substances powerful enough, Dumbledore explained. Basilisk venom is one. Fiend fire another, though incredibly dangerous to control. I might have another option, Harry said thoughtfully. Not affecting the soul magic directly, but altering the container to be incompatible with soul storage. Theoretically. Sirius looked concerned. This is getting into dangerous territory, Harry. Maybe we should focus on protection for now, rather than jumping straight to Horcrux hunting. Sirius is right, Dumbledore agreed. Your first priority must be safety. Voldemort now knows your location, or at least the general area. He will try again, perhaps with different methods. Harry nodded reluctantly. Fine. Protection first. But I'm not going to hide forever. And I'm going to start working on that detection system. In the days that followed, Harry implemented his adaptive ward system, with Hermione documenting every aspect of its creation. The new protections were revolutionary, a magical defense that could observe, learn, and evolve in response to attacks without direct intervention. It's like magical artificial intelligence, Hermione explained to a confused Sirius. It gets smarter the more it's tested. Harry also created what he called mirror sites, false magical signatures identical to their sanctuary but located in different areas around Britain. If anyone attempted to track them magically, they'd detect multiple possible locations, none of them the true one. Lucius Malfoy, meanwhile, continued his political maneuvering. His proposed, exceptional magical youth program gained support in the Wisengamot, despite Dumbledore's opposition. The Prophet ran articles questioning why certain magically gifted children weren't receiving appropriate ministry support and guidance. They're laying groundwork to try and force me into some kind of ministry program, Harry observed, reading the latest article with disgust. Over my dead body, Sirius growled. And I mean that quite literally. Harry smiled at his godfather's protectiveness. It won't come to that. I've been working on something that should change the conversation entirely. What Harry had been developing, with Hermione's help, was a comprehensive proposal for early magical education reform, one that would benefit all magical children, not just those with unusual abilities. Using data they'd compiled on accidental magic incidents, early childhood magical development, and international approaches to magical education, they created a compelling alternative to Malfoy's self-serving program. Sirius, with his newly restored political connections, arranged a special hearing before the Wizengamot. Harry insisted on presenting the proposal himself, despite Sirius's concerns about public exposure. "I need to do this," Harry said firmly. "They're all talking about me anyway. Time to show them who I actually am, not who they imagine me to be." The hearing created a sensation. The boy who lived, now 7 years old, addressing the Wizengamot with the confidence and articulation of someone 3 times his age. Harry didn't demonstrate his ability to rewrite magic, that remained his carefully guarded secret, but he spoke passionately about the needs of all magical children. "The current approach leaves Muggle-born children confused and isolated until age 11, he pointed out. It leaves wizard-raised children without structured guidance for their developing abilities. And it creates unnecessary divisions between magical communities that should be supporting each other." His proposal called for optional educational resources for all magical children from age 7, periodic check-ins by qualified mentors, and improved communication with Muggle parents of magical children. Most importantly, it emphasized voluntary participation and family autonomy, direct counters to the mandatory aspects of Malfoy's program. The response was overwhelmingly positive. Even traditionally conservative wizarding families could see the advantages, particularly the earlier identification and integration of Muggle-born children into wizarding culture. Lucius Malfoy's face throughout the presentation was a study in controlled fury. His program, designed specifically to gain access to Harry, had been outmaneuvered by the child himself. "You've made a powerful enemy today," Sirius murmured as they left the ministry after the vote approving Harry's proposal over Malfoy's. "He was already my enemy," Harry replied calmly. "Now he just knows I'm not easy prey." The success at the ministry bolstered Harry's confidence, perhaps too much. He threw himself into increasingly complex magical projects, the Horcrux detection system, experimental modifications to common household spells, and his most ambitious undertaking, an attempt to create a limited version of his abilities that other wizards could use. "It would be like a diagnostic lens," he explained to a skeptical Sirius and fascinated Hermione. "Not the ability to change magical law, just the ability to see how spells are constructed. It could revolutionize spell creation, magical theory, everything. It also reveals your greatest advantage to potential enemies," Sirius pointed out. "Sometimes keeping abilities secret is the smarter move." Harry pushed ahead anyway, working late into the night on his magical lens. The project was proving more challenging than expected. Translating his innate perceptions into a form others could use required bridging gaps between fundamentally different magical frameworks. One night, as Harry was deep in concentration, the stability meter Croaker had given them suddenly flashed red. The ambient magic around Harry's workspace had become dangerously unstable, fluctuating in ways that threatened to cascade beyond control. "Harry!" Hermione shouted, noticing the warning first. "Stop what you're doing right now." Harry looked up, momentarily confused, then saw the meter's urgent warning. He immediately halted his work, but the instability continued to grow. The very air seemed to shimmer with conflicting magical potentials. "What did you do?" Sirius demanded, rushing into the room with his wand drawn. "I was trying to create a bridge between my perceptual framework and standard magical sight," Harry explained rapidly. "But something's wrong. The patterns aren't resolving properly." The instability was spreading, affecting other enchantments throughout their sanctuary. Lights flickered, magical objects activated randomly, and the dimensional boundaries of their space began to waver. "Harry, fix it!" Hermione urged, panic edging her voice as a bookshelf nearby spontaneously transfigured into a flock of ravens. "I'm trying." Harry closed his eyes, seeking the source of the cascading failures. What he saw terrified him. His attempt to translate his perceptions had created a feedback loop in the underlying magical field, each fluctuation triggering larger ones in an accelerating cycle. This was exactly what Croaker had warned about, magic itself becoming unpredictable, chaotic. And it was spreading beyond their sanctuary. Harry took a deep breath and did something he'd never attempted before. Instead of changing magical law, he temporarily suspended it entirely within a controlled area, creating a null space where magic simply couldn't operate. The effort was enormous, like trying to hold back a flood with his bare hands. But gradually, the chaotic fluctuations died down as they hit the boundaries of his null space. The magical feedback loop, deprived of energy, finally collapsed. Harry released the null field carefully, allowing normal magic to resume in stable patterns. He collapsed to the floor, drained beyond anything he'd experienced before. "Never," Sirius said shakily, helping Harry to a chair, "do that again without consulting someone first." "Agreed," Harry whispered, too exhausted to argue. "That was bad. We need to contact Croaker immediately," Hermione said, already writing a hasty note. The fluctuations might have registered across the country. Indeed, when unspeakable Croaker arrived the following morning, his normally impassive face showed genuine alarm. "We recorded the largest spike in magical instability since our measurements began," he told them gravely. Every monitoring station from Scotland to Cornwall registered the disturbance. If it had continued unchecked. He left the sentence unfinished. "I stopped it," Harry said weakly, still recovering. "Created a null space where magic couldn't operate until the feedback loop collapsed." Croaker's eyebrows rose dramatically. "You suspended magical law itself? That's theoretically impossible." "Not suspended everywhere," Harry clarified. "Just in a controlled area. And it was really, really hard. Nevertheless, remarkable." Croaker studied the now stable readings on his instruments. "But this incident proves what we've been warning about. The cumulative effect of multiple changes to magical foundations creates unpredictable outcomes." "I get it now," Harry said soberly. "No more experimental rewrites without proper testing and containment." The incident had another unexpected outcome. The magical disruption had briefly weakened the dimensional protections around their sanctuary, just enough for Harry to sense something he hadn't detected before, a foreign magical trace, subtle but persistent, attached to himself. "There's a tracking charm on me," he realized with alarm. "It's weird though. Not like normal tracking magic. It's almost biological, like it's part of my own magical signature." Sirius and Croaker both performed detection spells but found nothing. "If it's integrated with your own magical signature, it wouldn't register on standard detection spells," Croaker noted. "Who could have placed such sophisticated magic without your awareness?" "Dumbledore," Harry said after a moment's consideration. "He hugged me at the ministry hearing." "That must be when he did it." Sirius looked furious. "That manipulative old, it makes sense from his perspective," Harry interrupted. "He's responsible for my safety, in his mind at least. And I've been operating independently of his guidance." "Still a violation of trust," Hermione pointed out indignantly. Harry nodded, then closed his eyes to examine the tracking charm in detail. "It's elegant work. Almost undetectable. But now that I know it's there." With careful precision, Harry modified the charm, not removing it entirely, but altering its function. Instead of reporting his true location to Dumbledore, it would now show him wherever Harry wanted it to show. "There," he said with satisfaction. "Now we can control what information Dumbledore receives. Might be useful in an emergency anyway." This incident marked a turning point in Harry's approach to his abilities. The near disaster with magical instability, combined with Dumbledore's secret tracking, reminded him forcefully that his powers came with serious responsibilities and limitations. He began working more systematically, creating contained testing environments for new magical concepts before implementing them. He collaborated more openly with Croaker, sharing theoretical insights while maintaining practical boundaries. And he focused on mastering traditional magic alongside his unique abilities, wand work, potion brewing, and the foundations of magical theory that all wizards learned. As his 7th birthday approached, Harry felt he had reached a new equilibrium, powerful but cautious, innovative but grounded. The adaptive wards protected their sanctuary, his political victory had temporarily stymied Lucius Malfoy's plans, and his Horcrux detection system was showing promising results in preliminary tests. But two significant challenges loomed on the horizon. First, Quirrell/Voldemort had gone suspiciously quiet. Dumbledore's sources reported no sightings, no unusual activities, a silence that worried Harry more than open attacks would have. "He's planning something big," Harry told Sirius and Hermione over breakfast one morning. "I can feel it. The connection through my scar has been active. Not painful, just present." The second challenge was more personal. Despite Harry's extensive magical knowledge and abilities, he was still a child who had experienced significant trauma and upheaval. Nightmares plagued him regularly, not just Merlin's instructive dreams, but terrifying visions of green light, high-pitched laughter, and more recently, the chaotic cascade of magic spinning out of control. Sirius, showing the wisdom that surprised those who only knew his reckless side, recognized that Harry needed more than magical training and protection. He needed normalcy, friendship, and the chance to simply be a child. "I've been thinking," Sirius said casually one evening as they played wizard's chess, with pieces Harry had enchanted to offer strategic advice in different historical generals' voices. "Maybe we should consider some interaction with other magical kids your age. Not just Hermione." Harry looked up from the board where his Napoleon-voiced knight was arguing with his patent-voiced bishop about flanking maneuvers. "You mean like, friends?" "Crazy concept, I know," Sirius teased. "But yeah. Friends. Kids who don't know you're the heir of Merlin or the boy who lived. Just. Harry." The idea was appealing. For all his extraordinary abilities, Harry sometimes felt the acute absence of normal childhood experiences. Hermione was his best friend, but her analytical mind and studious nature matched his own too closely to provide balance. "Who did you have in mind?" Harry asked cautiously. "The Weasleys have a boy about your age. Ron, I think. Good family. And the Longbottoms, their son Neville would have been at Hogwarts in your year." Sirius moved his queen. "Check, by the way." Harry countered the move while considering the suggestion. "It might be dangerous for them. Being associated with me, I mean. Life's dangerous, kiddo. Friendship makes it worth the risk." Sirius studied Harry with unexpected seriousness. "Your dad taught me that." The mention of his father decided it. "Okay. Let's try it. But carefully." Arrangements were made through trusted intermediaries. A playdate, Harry grimaced at the term, was organized at a neutral location, a magical children's park with extensive safety charms. Security was subtly enhanced by Sirius and a disguised Remus Lupin, who had reconnected with his old friend after Sirius's exoneration. The meeting went better than Harry had dared hope. Ron Weasley was refreshingly straightforward, interested in Quidditch, comic books, and sweets, with no apparent awe at meeting the famous Harry Potter. Neville Longbottom was painfully shy at first but warmed up when Harry showed genuine interest in his passionate knowledge of magical plants. For one afternoon, Harry was just another magical kid playing Exploding Snap and eating ice cream that changed flavors with each bite. The experience was both ordinary and extraordinary, a glimpse of the childhood he might have had without prophecies and dark lords and the weight of Merlin's legacy. As the sun began to set and their play date drew to a close, Harry felt a strange sensation, a shift in the magical atmosphere, subtle but distinctive. His smile faded as he extended his senses, trying to identify the disturbance. "What's wrong?" Ron asked, noticing Harry's sudden alertness. "Not sure," Harry murmured, scanning their surroundings. "Something's changed. The magic feels tense." Across the park, Sirius had also noticed something. He was on his feet, wand at his side but ready, eyes scanning the perimeter. Remus had moved closer to the children, casually but purposefully positioning himself as a shield. Then Harry felt it, the same dark, fractured magical signature he'd sensed during the attack on their sanctuary. Voldemort was here, or at least nearby, watching. Without drawing attention, Harry activated one of his special preparations, a magical beacon that would alert Dumbledore and Croaker simultaneously to an emergency. Then he carefully, subtly strengthened the protective charms around the park, adding his own layers without making obvious magical gestures. "Guys, I think we should head home," Harry said lightly to Ron and Neville. "It's getting late." "Ah, just one more game," Ron pleaded, oblivious to the danger. Before Harry could insist, a cold wind swept through the park. The enchanted lanterns flickered and dimmed. And at the entrance gate stood a figure in a purple turban, Professor Quirrell, host to Lord Voldemort. "Harry Potter," Quirrell called, his voice oddly doubled, as if two people were speaking at once. What a fortuitous encounter. Sirius and Remus moved instantly, placing themselves between the children and the threat. Parents throughout the park, sensing danger, began gathering their children and disapparating with sharp cracks of displaced air. "Ron, Neville, go to your parents now," Harry said urgently. "Please." Ron looked confused but complied when he saw the serious expressions on the adults' faces. Neville, surprisingly, hesitated. "You're in danger," he said quietly to Harry. "Because of you-know-who." Harry was startled by Neville's perception. "Yes. But I'll be okay. Go, please." Once the boys had retreated to their families, Harry stepped forward to stand between Sirius and Remus. "What do you want?" he called to Quirrell. The possessed professor smiled unnaturally. "Merely a conversation, young Potter. About your remarkable abilities." "Not interested," Harry replied flatly. "Oh, but I think you are." Quirrell's voice shifted, becoming higher, colder, Voldemort speaking more directly through his host. "You seek mastery of magic itself. So do I. We could learn much from each other." "You have nothing to teach me," Harry said, even as he carefully prepared a magical countermeasure, weaving protective patterns around himself and his guardians. "No." Voldemort/Quirrell took a step forward. "What about soul magic, Harry? The one domain you cannot master." "I have delved deeper into those mysteries than any wizard living." The direct reference to Harry's limitation was unsettling. How much did Voldemort know about the specifics of his abilities? "Stay back," Sirius warned, his wand now openly aimed at Quirrell. "The Aurors are on their way. A minor inconvenience." Quirrell/Voldemort made a casual gesture, and the park's exit points sealed themselves with dark, writhing barriers. "We have time for a demonstration, at least." With startling speed, Quirrell raised his wand and cast a spell unlike any Harry had seen before, a sickly yellow beam that twisted through the air, changing direction to target Harry specifically. Harry didn't try to dodge. Instead, he reached out with his unique perception, seeing the spell's construction in flight. It was complex dark magic designed to establish a binding connection between caster and target, not immediately harmful, but potentially allowing Voldemort access to Harry's abilities. With a precise mental adjustment, Harry altered the spell's targeting parameter. The yellow beam curved in midair and struck a nearby bench, which immediately crumbled to dust. "Fascinating," Voldemort/Quirrell murmured. "You truly can rewrite magic as it happens. Most impressive." Sirius and Remus had begun casting protective spells, but Harry waved them down. "He's testing me," he explained quietly. "Trying to see what I can do." "Then let's show him," Sirius growled, his expression fierce. Harry nodded, then turned back to Voldemort/Quirrell. "You want to see what I can do? Fine." With deliberate focus, Harry extended his awareness into the magical foundation of the park itself. The entire area had been heavily enchanted for children's safety, cushioning charms on the ground, anti-aggression spells, monitoring wards. Harry didn't change these directly. Instead, he amplified them, strengthening their parameters and extending their scope. The effect was immediate. Quirrell gasped as his aggressive intentions triggered the enhanced anti-aggression charms. His wand arm froze in place, unable to complete his next spell. The monitoring wards, now hypersensitive, began wailing magical alarms. "You see, Tom," Harry said, deliberately using Voldemort's birth name, "I don't need to attack you. I just need to use what's already here." Voldemort's fury was palpable, emanating from Quirrell in waves of dark magic that Harry could see corroding the very air around them. With visible effort, the Dark Lord fought against the park's enchantments, gradually overpowering them through sheer magical force. "Clever," he hissed. "But insufficient. You play with children's magic while I command powers you cannot imagine." With a violent gesture, Quirrell/Voldemort released a pulse of dark energy that shattered Harry's enhancements, restoring his freedom of movement. Before anyone could react, he cast another spell, this one directly at Harry's scar. Pain exploded in Harry's forehead. The connection between them flared with terrible intensity as Voldemort attempted to force his way into Harry's mind. But instead of fighting directly, Harry did something unexpected. He welcomed the connection. Opening his perception fully, Harry allowed Voldemort to establish the mental link, then used it to transmit a specific magical pattern directly into the Dark Lord's fractured consciousness. It wasn't an attack. It was information, pure, undiluted insight into the nature of soul magic as Harry understood it. The pattern revealed the fundamental flaw in what Voldemort had done to himself, how splitting his soul had created inherent magical instabilities that could never be resolved. Quirrell screamed, a horrible sound that came from two throats simultaneously. He staggered backward, clutching his head as the magical insight overwhelmed both host and parasite. What have you done?" Voldemort's voice demanded, barely coherent. "Shown you the truth," Harry said simply. "Your soul is broken beyond repair, Tom. No magic, not even mine, can fix what you've done to yourself." With a final howl of rage, Quirrell/Voldemort retreated, disapparating through a gap in the park's wards that had opened during their magical exchange. In the silence that followed, Sirius pulled Harry into a protective embrace. "Are you all right? What did you do to him?" "I'm fine," Harry assured him, though his scar still throbbed painfully. "I didn't hurt him, exactly. I just showed him something he didn't want to see. The truth about his soul," Remus guessed shrewdly. Harry nodded. "He wanted my ability to rewrite magic because he thinks it could repair his soul. But it can't. Some damage can't be undone, even with Merlin's power." The confrontation changed things. Voldemort now knew definitively that Harry couldn't give him what he wanted most, restoration of his shattered soul. But this made the Dark Lord more dangerous, not less. If he couldn't use Harry's abilities, he would seek to destroy them, and Harry along with them. The attack also brought renewed attention from the Ministry. Fudge himself visited their sanctuary, its location revealed to him temporarily by Harry for this specific meeting, to discuss security concerns. "The boy who lived, targeted again by you-know-who," the minister fretted. "The public will panic if this gets out. We need a coordinated response, increased security." "What we need," Harry interrupted firmly, "is to find and destroy his Horcruxes." Fudge blinked in confusion. "His what?" "Never mind," Sirius cut in smoothly. "Harry, perhaps we could discuss that particular matter with Dumbledore first." The meeting ended with vague promises of Auror support and continued vigilance. Once Fudge departed, Harry activated his Horcrux detection system, a network of enchanted objects he'd created to resonate with the unique magical frequency of Voldemort's soul fragments. "There's one at Hogwarts," he announced, studying the magical feedback. "And one at, it looks like a large old house. Ancestral home, maybe? Could be the Gaunt Shack," Dumbledore suggested when they shared this information. "Tom's mother's family. I've suspected it might hold significance." With Dumbledore's guidance, they began planning a careful, systematic approach to locating and containing, if not yet destroying, the Horcruxes. This would be a long-term project, requiring patience and caution. In the meantime, Harry continued his broader magical education. Despite the dangers and responsibilities, he was still just 7 years old, with 4 years remaining before he would officially begin at Hogwarts. There was so much to learn, both through traditional methods and through his unique abilities. Hermione, as always, was his steadfast partner in research and discovery. Their friendship had evolved into a deep bond of trust and complementary strengths. Where Harry saw intuitive possibilities, Hermione provided methodical structure. Where she hit theoretical limitations, he offered practical shortcuts. Ron and Neville joined their circle cautiously at first, then with growing enthusiasm. Neither fully understood the extent of Harry's abilities. He was careful to demonstrate only age-appropriate magic around them, but they accepted him as a friend first, celebrity second. As his 8th birthday approached, Harry reflected on the extraordinary journey of the past year and a half. From the neglected child in a cupboard to the heir of Merlin's power, from lonely orphan to the center of a growing family of choice. The path ahead remained uncertain, filled with both promise and peril. But he was no longer facing it alone. In his dreams, Merlin continued to guide him, though the ancient wizard's counsel had evolved as Harry matured. "You begin to understand the true nature of power," Merlin told him during one such dream. "Not dominance, but transformation. Not control, but harmony." "Is that why you chose me?" Harry asked. "Because I wouldn't try to rule with these abilities?" Merlin's starlight beard shimmered as he smiled. "I didn't choose you, young heir. Magic itself did. It recognized in you the potential for balance, the wisdom to know when to change the world and when to let the world change you." Harry considered this as he stood in the dreamscape beside his ancestor. "There's so much I still don't understand. About my parents, about Voldemort, about why all this happened to me specifically." "Understanding comes with time," Merlin said gently. "And time is one thing even I cannot rewrite. Live each day as it comes, Harry Potter. Learn. Grow. Love. The magic will follow." Harry woke from the dream feeling strangely at peace. Outside his window, the sun was rising on a new day, another opportunity to explore the extraordinary gift he'd been given and the responsibility it entailed. The heir of Merlin had awakened, and his journey was just beginning. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.